former Senator Rick Santorum.
Senator Santorum, no one has spent more time in Iowa than you. You have visited every county in the state. And yet, while we have seen no fewer than 4 Republican candidates surge in the polls, sometimes in extraordinary ways, so far your campaign and you have failed to catch fire with the voters. Why?
Well, I'm counting on the people of Iowa to catch fire for me. That's what this plan was all about from day one, is to go all 99 counties and do already almost 350 town hall meetings here in Iowa. We're organizing. We have a very clear message. That's the thing that's going to pay off for us in the end, that we present the clear contrast that really nobody else in this race does. We present the contrast of someone who's been a strong conviction conservative. You know where I stand. You can trust me because I've been there and I've done it. And I did it as a leader. When I was in the leadership, if you were a conservative and you had an issue that you wanted to get voted on and you wanted to get done in the United States Senate, you came to Rick Santorum because I was the guy fighting for the conservative cause when it was popular and when it was unpopular. The Speaker had a conservative revolution against him when he was the Speaker of the House. I had conservatives knocking down my door because I was the effective advocate for the principles that they believed in. That's the contrast. We need someone who's strong in their political and personal life to go out and contrast themselves with the president and make him the issue in this campaign. And that's why Iowans are beginning to respond. They like the accountability. They like the fact that I've been there and met with them and believe in them to lead this country.
If you're president, as is the case now, and you're at loggerheads with one chamber of Congress, how would you handle this situation, Senator Santorum?
Well, you do what leaders do when they go out and try to bring people together. They tell a narrative and remind Americans who we are and how we solve our problems. This country is a great country because we believe in free people. In 2008, the American public were convinced by Barack Obama that they needed someone to believe in, that they could believe in. We now understand that what we need is some president who believes in them. That's the narrative. Go out and motivate the American public. Have them talk to their representatives in Washington to pass solutions that believe in bottom up, how we built America, free markets, free people.
Senator Santorum, right now American companies have trillions parked overseas because of the very high tax rates here. Would you support a tax holiday to bring that money back, but only under, as some Democrats have suggested, the condition that these companies hire workers with that money?
Yeah, what I proposed in my Made in the USA plan is that if money has been made overseas, that it can come back at a 5.5% rate, which is what we did back in 2004, and it did cause a lot of money to come back. But I put a special rate, 0. If they bring it back and invest it in plant and equipment in America. We need to rebuild the manufacturing base of this country. When I traveled around to all these counties in Iowa, I went to a lot of small towns like Sidney and Hamburg down in Fremont County, and I was in the other day in Newton, where they've lost jobs to overseas. Why? Because we're not competitive. We need to have our capital be competitive and come here free so they can invest it. We need to cut the corporate tax on manufacturers to 0. Why? Because there's a 20% cost differential between America and our 9 top trading partners, and that's excluding labor costs. We need to get our taxes down. We need to repeal regulations. I promise to repeal every single Obamacare regulation, every single Obama regulation that cost businesses over $100 million. I can repeal it. I can't repeal laws. But as a president, you can repeal regulations, and I will repeal every single one of them so business can get going in this country.
With just a name, favorite Supreme Court justice?
I have to say, these folks over here have been talking about taking on the courts. I've done it. I actually campaigned in Iowa against those justices, and I was the only one on this panel that did it, number one. Number two, when the partial birth abortion statute was struck down by the Supreme Court, George Bush got elected. We actually went back, and I worked with Henry Hyde, and we passed another bill, told the Supreme Court they were wrong, passed it, George Bush signed it, and it was overturned. You can talk about reform and doing something to confront the courts, or you can actually go out and make it happen. I made it happen. And it's Thomas.
And quickly down the line.
Senator Santorum, you have a very different thought about the threat from Iran. For several years, according to U.S. military leaders, Iran has provided training, funding, and lethal arms to jihadists killing American soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. Are those acts of war?
They have been continually. They just tried to plan an attack here in this country, killing the Saudi ambassador. They've been at war with us since 1979. The IEDs that have killed so many soldiers, they're manufactured in Iran. Iran is not any other country. It's a country that is ruled by the equivalent of Al-Qaeda on top of this country. They are a radical theocracy. The principal virtue of the Islamic Republic of Iran, according to President Ahmadinejad, is not freedom, opportunity, it's martyrdom. The idea, Ron, that mutual assured destruction, like the policy during the Cold War with the Soviet Union, would work on Iran when their principal virtue is martyrdom, is mutual assured destruction with respect to Iran would not be any kind of idea of preventing a war. It would be an inducement to war. This is what their objective is. Their objective is to, in fact, create a calamity. This is what their theology teaches. They believe that it is their mission to take on the West. They don't hate us because of what we do or the policies we have. They hate us because of who we are and what we believe in. And we need to make sure that they do not have a nuclear weapon. And we should be working with the State of Israel right now. We should use covert activity, and we should be planning a strike against their facilities and say, if you do not open up those facilities and not close them down, we will close them down for you.
Senator Santorum, what say you to the Attorney General's claim that the Republicans are politicizing this issue?
I would agree with Governor Perry that if he was the Attorney General under me, I would have him. I would fire him. I wouldn't have him resign. I'd fire him. This is something he should have been aware of. Something that should have been stopped. This shouldn't have started in the first place. I think Governor Perry is also right, and this is something I've been saying now for many years, which is we need to pay much more attention to what's going on in our own hemisphere. Not only do they have the largest embassy in Venezuela, there are flights from Tehran from Damascus to Caracas, and those flights stop at a military base before they come into the civilian base. There are training camps, jihadist training camps in Central and South America. They're working with the drug cartels, and they are planning assaults on the United States. That's what we know is going on right now, and we are doing. This president has ignored that threat, has insulted our allies like Honduras and Colombia deliberately, has embraced, as he has the other scoundrels in the Middle East, has embraced Chavez and Ortega and others in Central and South America, not promoting our values and interests. We need a brand new initiative, an initiative that says that we will promote our values in this region and we will stop the spread of terrorism in Central and South America.
Senator Santorum, you have campaigned on social issues as much or perhaps more than any other candidate on this stage. Are you persuaded that Governor Romney has made these changes, or what he says in some cases are not changes, based on principle and not political expedience?
Governor Romney, when he was governor of Massachusetts, was faced with a Supreme Court decision that said that traditional marriage was unconstitutional. In that court decision, the court said that they did not have the power to change the law in Massachusetts and rule same-sex marriage legal. Why? Because in the Massachusetts Constitution, it states specifically that only the governor and the legislature can change marriage laws. Governor Romney, the court then gave the legislature a certain amount of time to change the law. They did not. So Governor Romney was faced with a choice. Go along with the court or go along with the Constitution and the statute. He chose the court and ordered people to issue gay marriage licenses and went beyond that. He personally, as governor, issued gay marriage licenses. I don't think that is an accurate representation of his position of saying tolerance versus substantively changing the laws. I've had a strong, consistent track record of standing up for the values of this country, not discriminating. I had a no discrimination policy in my office. But we're not talking about discrimination. We're talking about changing the basic values of our country.
Governor Romney, 30 seconds to respond, sir.
The question is, how do you balance, on the one hand, trying to win the nomination, with, on the other hand, not weakening the eventual nominee to the point where he or she is less electable than President Obama? Down the road, Senator Santorum.
We have a responsibility to vet the candidates. That's what, look, I've been at 350 town hall meetings. I've been kicked pretty hard by a lot of Iowans about the positions I hold, and that's the process. The process is, let's find out who can stand up. Let's find out who has the best record, who's the person that can have the consistency of going out there and fighting for the principles that we believe in. Because let me assure you, the other side's going to kick very, very hard, and we have to have someone who can stand up for it, fight, and holds those convictions deep so they can fight the good fight in the fall and win this presidency.